Now, Kuba was also a rescue, and if you guys like doing animal type stuff, I believe the last one will be this Sunday until next year. You go down to the Kankakee County Fairgrounds. First Sunday of the month, April through October. So the first Sunday of the April or October is going to be this coming up. It'll be the last one until April. It's called the Bird Swap. It is a flea market. It is just animals, row after row of all kinds of stuff. That's where my birds and some of my livestock come, all legal stuff. And if it's a $2,000 parrot in Orland Park, you can get them down there for $500. You can get supplies, amphibians, all kinds of stuff. Parakeets. That's the place. It's just all animals. But guys, you got to remember, these are agricultural people. They are going home at 10 a.m. So you got to get down there early. And so basically about 15 years ago, I only go down there when I need, to replenish, get more birds or something like that. So about 15 years ago, I didn't go to one of them. And a friend of mine from McHenry, way up north, he stopped here on his way home to say hello. He says, "Boy, John," he says, "there was some knucklehead selling 2 little baby black bears to anybody there that would give him $300. If you were there that day, you could have went home with a baby bear." Okay, totally illegal. Life expectancy of the animal, probably about 9 months. Okay, look what you need for containment here. Okay, he's going to get out of your garage. He's going to get out of your basement. That is now called a public safety threat, and the police will take care of it. Just like they took care of the cougar up north there years ago, they had to shoot him. Okay, because the animal would take a child in a heartbeat. So what happens is, he says, "John, I'm standing here." Some lady walks up, hands the man $300, and walks away with a baby bear. My comment to him was, I said, "You know what, Jeff? It's probably eventually going to wind up here, because I do board for the state or the feds. When the people get caught illegally, they'll place them here and they'll pay me rent, board, till they figure out what they're going to do with the animal if they don't offer them to me." So I haven't in a while, but I used to. And so basically 5 days after I made that statement, Will County Animal Control's in the driveway. "Boy, John, wait till you see what we've got for you this time." I said, "You know what?" I said, "No, fellas, you don't have anything for me this time." I said, "I can tell by the way you're saying it, you're dropping this thing off. They just need a place to put, get rid of it, because they don't have the federal license, the state or the county. I do." So I wouldn't look. They said, "John," I said, "you guys got to call me first. I told you, you can't just keep coming here and dropping animals." Well, they were making their little jokes and comments. Well, one of the officers was holding Kuma. He was only as big as a raccoon, probably about 20 pounds. Hell, Kuma's he's out of milk, so he starts making little bear noises. Well, I've never had a bear here before, so I was as curious as everybody else as to what's making that noise. So I looked, and as soon as I looked, I went, "Oh no." Guys, there ain't nothing cuter than a baby bear. Okay, he was wrapped in a little blankie with bears on it. He had a little bottle in his mouth with bears on it, and he had a little teddy bear, and he's whining, "He's out of milk." I said, "Fellas, you can't do this to me. I don't have nowhere to put a bear, man." They said, "John, he's only 20 pounds. I said, "Fellas, hello, McFly." I said, "Little bears turn into big bears." They said, "John, all joking aside, we don't have anywhere else to bring this animal." He says, "You know what? You're the only guy around here that can handle the big stuff." He says, "If you don't take him right now, we have no choice. We go to the clinic that the county uses over in Mokina. He will be euthanized. He's going to be dead in 45 minutes. He said, "You know all the animal people. We don't even know where to even start looking or calling." He says, "You know all those people across the country. Can't you at least give him a chance? We don't want to put him down." Well, I looked at him. I said, "He is awful cute." I said, "Well, all right, let me see what I can do." As soon as they handed me that animal, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I felt it right in here. Okay, pretty soon he had a name. Me and him are playing in the creek. I'm taking him for walks out in the woods. Everybody's coming out for photographs. When he was about 100 pounds, I took him for a walk up to the stop sign. Some guy in a pickup truck pulled up next to me and said, "Hey, man, is that a Rottweiler?" I said, "Yeah, man, that's a big fat Rottweiler." He said, "Man, that looks like a bear." I said, "A bear? Where would I get a bear?" I said, "That's a Rottweiler." He said, "Okay," and he drove away. And then got to watch some more Animal Planet, okay? And so you'll see it when you get your free time. It's on the other side of the barn there. You can't see it right now, but it looks like a big bird cage. It's got a black top on it. It's a corn crib like this, but it's a small one. Well, that was sufficient for a baby bear, but that was right over here where the grass is. I moved it. And so I put him in there. Well, guys, USDA shows up, my inspector. "All right, John, where'd you get the bear?" I says, "Well," I told him the story. I said, "Here's the paperwork. He was confiscated by county and then donated to me." He says, "All right." He says, "Okay, that's fine." He says, "But," he says, "you are not going to believe how quickly a bear grows." He says, "He's going to get out of that thing in no time." He says, "John, on my next inspection, you will have a full-blown bear enclosure." He says, "Or I'm going to have to take him. I'm going to have to put him in a bear park up in Dakota where he'll be just another bear in a drive-through park and not spoiled rotten like he is here." Well, guys, they're the boss. So I did call up to the bear park. I said, I talked to the lady. I said, I got a bear dropped in my lap. I says, my expertise is wolves. I need some information. How do I handle? What do I do with this guy? You know, and so basically she was on the phone with me for 2 hours. Guys, we are very helpful to each other in this industry. We all love what we're doing with the animals. We don't want to see us get a bad name by making mistakes, so everybody is very helpful. You know, people call me all the time for wolf advice. If I'm on the phone with them for 2 hours, no problem. So she says, well, how many acres you got? Where are you going to put them? I said, well, I've got the land. I said, but guys, you see that chain link fence you guys are leaning on? That is some expensive stuff. So I described we didn't have the money for all that much chain link because it's got to be double fenced. Enclosure and the security area. It's that federal law. So I described this area. She says, oh, John, that's more than enough. That's plenty. She says, but in an area this big, she says, John, you will put him on concrete. They eat a lot. They're messy. I usually power wash this thing on Wednesdays and Saturdays, okay? I just cleaned them before you got here. In one day, you would not believe what I took out of here. Okay, she said, you don't put them on concrete, you will surely regret it. So we did fundraisers, because guys, we just get by with what we're doing here. This place is so expensive to run with doing our programs, open houses and everything. So we did fundraisers to try to come up with the concrete. This is an expensive piece of concrete here. Well, guys, the money wasn't coming in, so I told staff and volunteers, I started telling the kids, well, guys, you know what, we're going to probably have to say goodbye to Kuma. I can't come up with the money. I had one last chance. You know what I did? I looked up at the sky and I said, you know what, if this bear's supposed to be here for all these kids to learn from and enjoying for us to spoil rotten, I need some concrete and I need it real quick. Now it's in your hands. Well, guys, I should have done that in the first place, because you know what happened? 2 weeks later, concrete shows up. All I had to do is help the guys put it down and keep the cold water and the sandwiches coming. I said, well, thanks very much for the concrete, but we need an enclosure. Now, guys, I was a mechanic for 34 years. I can weld, I can do all this kind of stuff, but you're not building something like this by yourself. There's no way. Okay. Well, 2 weeks later, 2 local 597 pipe fitters were standing at my front door. Pipe fitters, those are the guys that put up the big oil refineries, heavy steel, welders and everything. One guy was a bodybuilder, big old boy. He looked at me and he said, you John? I said, yeah, who wants to know? I had the door ready to slam too, because he was a big boy. I was going to slam the door. I don't know what, if he was coming there because he was mad at me or something. I said, yeah, who wants to know? He says, well, we understand you need a bear enclosure. I said, oh yeah? I said, who told you that? The man looked at me and he went, somebody? This, and I said, wow. I looked up at the sky and I said, wow, this is getting done real quick. So he says, now we're a big outfit. He says, we're going to get you the materials at our cost. He said, we're going to come out here and give you a couple weekends. We're going to get this thing up for you. I says, fellas, I know how much pipe fitters make an hour. I can't pay you. I don't have the money for it. Man looked at me and he said, I don't believe anybody mentioned anything about any money. He says, you just keep them sandwiches and cold water coming. He says, we'll get this done. The three of us built this in 2 full weekends. They left. I never saw them again. I don't even remember their names. Guys, I don't even think they were pipe fitters. You ever remember that Michael Landon TV show where the angel comes down, gets the job done, and goes to the next episode? Don't tell me that didn't happen here. Never saw them again. Okay? They don't never come back for a visit or nothing. Okay? So what happens is, USDA shows up. He's walking around. He's got his clipboard. He's looking at this thing. He's shaking his head like there was something wrong with it. I said, I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me, man. We put a lot of work. He turned around, shook my hand, said, John, nice job, man. He says, I was real worried I was going to have to take a bear off you here. And he says, it's a big hassle for us to get him up to Dakota. So he says, but where's your shifting pen? See over there, guys? There's a guillotine door right there, up and down door. That's called a shift or a shifting pen. One day, maybe I can't come in here. Maybe he gets aggressive or something like that. But just like at the big zoos, when they clean the outside, they shift them and lock them inside, like tigers and lions, bears. And then when they clean the inside, they shift them outside. Hence, that's called a shift. He says, where's your shift? Well, I came in here, I gave him a big hug and a kiss on the forehead, and I said, Ken, I don't need a shift with him. I raised him from a baby, but he is 8. He says, John, federal law says you will have a shift for this animal, whether you use it or not. An animal this powerful and potentially dangerous will have a shift. He says, I don't care if that bear sits in the house with you on the couch drinking beer, watching the Bears game. He says, you got to have a shift. I said, all right, well, then we'll get one up. So we put one up, and I'm glad we did, because that gives him a chance to get off the concrete when he wants to. He goes off there and lays in the nice cool grass. He's an omnivore. Black bears do more grazing than they do eat meat. Okay, so what happens is all those plants on there are what bears like to eat, and he likes to go out there at night. He likes to go in there and lay in the grass and everything, make me think he got out or something like that, but I know he can't get out. He is declawed in the front for my protection. Now, for the last 14 years, I come in here. He knows the whole routine. He stands up. He's 500 pounds. He's 7.5 feet tall when he stands up. I'd come in here, I wouldn't even have to tell him. I would tell him, big bear, show me a big bear and you get a treat. Well, he got to the point he knew the whole routine. I didn't even have to tell him. He stands up, he gives me a big bear hug. We do a little pro wrestling. I give him a belly rub. I pull his lips back, show you kids, and then all the little kids take a turn squirting him with the hose. He loves the water. And so basically, but this summer he has not done it. Okay, he's probably getting old. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He did it twice at the open houses, but for today you can see he's out of it. He just ate. And so basically, he should live to be about 30, 35 in the wild. he would have been a trophy bear a long time ago. He'd have been shot a long time ago. Okay, so basically, like I said, he's declawed because if he was to sink his claws into my back, that means I'm standing there till he decides to let me go. With his no front claws, I can get away from him if I need to. Now, I did ask the lady, what do we feed the bear when he comes off the bottle? I can't go fishing every day. She says, oh no, John, she says, dry dog food. His main diet is dry dog food, fruits, vegetables, fish, everything like that. So basically over the years, guys, I have found Kuma has 3 favorite foods. Dry dog food is number 3. His number 2 favorite is green seedless grapes. And his number 1 all-time favorite treat, which I found out by accident, is chocolate Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies. Yep. We had 50 brownies out here. It was Girl Scout cookie time. Well, I like those Thin Mint, so I bought a couple boxes from the kids. I'm walking around munching them. Then I said, boy, I bet you Kuma'd like some of these. He's never tasted chocolate mint. So I came in here and I said, Kuma, show me a big bear and I'll give you a treat. He stood up for me. His head's about this tall. I popped a couple of Thin Mints in his mouth. His little brown eyes lit up. He started running around the enclosure like a crazy bear, throwing his tire at me, and I had to get out of there. I thought he was going to knock me over. It was like catnip for a bear. So now, consequently, over the years, all the kids know he likes Thin Mints, so when we have our family day open house, inevitably, some of the kids bring him about 3 or 4 boxes of cookies, so he gets a box of cookies a week for being a good bear. And now the lady also did tell me, she said, John, he's 15 now. She says, when he's 5 to 6 years old, she said, you better respect that animal's power. She says, with one arm, he'll put you up against a wall like a ripe tomato at 100 miles an hour. She said, if I told you how quick that animal could move, she says, you would not believe me. Well, guys, I've seen it once. He was over by his pool. I was standing right here by this pole. There was a man standing out there. He did not like. I've never seen him behave like that with anybody. He went into full posturing and aggression, blowing and grunting and everything like that. He moved from that pool to that gate. He was a blur of black. He hit that gate so hard the entire enclosure shook like it was going to come down. That man about passed out. He looked at me and said, John, after seeing that animal move that quick with that much power, you've got to be crazy to be in there with him. I said, no, you'd be crazy to be in here with him. He don't like you. Consequently, we found out why. Kuma knew it before any of us did. This guy wasn't around here that much. He was an infiltrator. He was from one of these animal rights people that thinks what I'm doing here is all wrong because he said so. Okay, if you don't like what we're doing here, you change the laws. If I don't like blue cars, I'm not going to drive around the countryside burning blue cars because I don't like them. Okay, so basically, I feared for my animals, not knowing who this guy's connected with and what they're going to pull. So this is a federally licensed facility. The first people I call are the FBI. Okay, FBI was out here the following day at 9:30 in the morning. The big Crown Vic, smoke glasses, you know, the suits right out of the movies. They were here for 2 hours. Went over everything I need to know about these terrorist organizations. You know what they told me? The biggest terrorist threat we have within our borders are the radical, the guerrilla animal rights people that take laws into their own hands. Remember that thing that happened in Ohio with all the big cats and they had to kill all those cats? That was murder. That was an organization called ELF, Animal Liberation Front. They said, you've got to be careful. She said, John, they'll come here and kill you and they'll release all your animals. He says, you've got to get surveillance up. Well, before they left, they said, do you have this man's name, address, and phone number? I says, I do. They said, can we have that? I said, yeah. They said, we're going to go pay him a visit right now. And the one guy looked at me and he said, I don't think you'll have anything to worry about from him, okay? We never heard another peep out of him, and if he comes on this property, he will be immediately arrested. But they did tell me, John, you've got to get surveillance up. It's your best defense. So I had a camera company come out. Like I said, we just get by with what we're doing here every month. $30,000 to set the cameras up. Well, we're not going that route, are we? So basically, I ran into an old friend of mine. I haven't seen him since high school. He was a master carpenter. Well, guys, there's not a lot of work for carpenters these days, right? So we talked about the thing that happened in Ohio with the big cats. He says, well, guess what I do for a living, John, nowadays? He goes, what? He says, I install surveillance in nuclear powerhouses, government installations, Walmarts. He says, I have a boatload of equipment sitting in my shop that's got nothing to do. He says, I'm going to take care of this for you. I said, Eric, he says, you take me out for pizza and beer sometime. He says, that's all I want. He says, don't worry about it. Me and my son will take care of it. So you see that big white camera there? That watches the bear. It's just inside the gate. That other one there was a fake. That one there watches the bear. There's another one out in front, watches the whole front yard. If you see that big light, that teardrop light, that street light, underneath there's a big white box. That's called a PTZ. It goes on guard tour. It looks at the field, it looks at the wolves, the cougar, the barn, the pavilion, and the back of the house. Every 5 seconds, it moves somewhere else at night. After 10 o'clock, it goes into infrared. Somebody comes through the field here or comes through the woods to try to come in here and harm these animals. It picks it up, zooms in on them, follows them, and it calls my phone and tells me we have an intruder. There's 4 more cameras on the barn, and the man wouldn't take a dime from me. He said, my donation to the ranch, take me out for a couple of pizzas and beers, he says, and we'll be good. So basically, what a brushing. Now it goes to a shop. to some building out in space. Then it comes back to my computer and it is recorded. He says, let me see your phone. You got a smartphone? I said, I do. He says, as soon as I get a chance, he says, I'll come out here and take care of this. He says, John, you could be riding the Matterhorn at Disneyland in California. I'll show you how to pick up on your phone. You can go to any camera on this property and see what's going on right now through your phone. He hasn't done that yet, but he said he's going to probably get that done this month. Okay, so we are fully protected. Basically, baby bears are born in February.